Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my presentation on ethical issues in data aggregation. I hope this presentation will provide you with useful information about data aggregation, specifically the immense power of aggregated data, the ethical implications of mishandling such powers, and the necessity to keep it under control as appropriate to the human society. So, let me start by talking briefly about data aggregation as a concept. Data aggregation is the combination of different databases into a larger and more comprehensive ones. To speak in more familiar terms, when you are trying to find out details about a person, you would look into different sources of information about them, such as their social media profiles, their personas, other people's impressions of them, etc. You then combine these different information in order to synthesize a bigger picture of who you think they are. With it, you are able to more appropriately respond to different kinds of situations in which you interact with them. Long story short, more information is basically better. Take a look at the example provided on the slide. Whoever has access to the bottom database simply knows more about these individuals' preferences than those only having access to either of the top ones. Well, you would not be alone if you may ask, what can go wrong with knowing too much information? Aggregated data holds much power because knowing a lot about someone gives you leverage over them, let alone knowing something they would rather you do not know. I believe everyone here is familiar with the concept of blackmailing. Knowing too much about multiple people also impedes your chance to give them fair opportunities when you have to compare them against each other. There would be two main ethical concerns that can arise from data aggregation, which are representation and privacy. I will go in further details shortly. Before that, though, let me put this whole issue in the context of big data and how the rapid pace of technological development has made it easier, day by day, to gather an immense amount of information on a large group of individuals over a shorter amount of time. The ever-constant and fast advancements of information technology have facilitated more automated, more powerful, and more efficient data mining and analysis. For example, a decade ago, the concept of the current smartphone was still new to much more people than it is now. More powerful computing devices are getting smaller and more accessible. Furthermore, the Internet of Things, which is such a cutting-edge concept that some still considers it bleeding edge. Out there are so many devices that records information about all sorts of things going on. In addition, the development of artificial intelligence has enabled more automated and more autonomous analysis and decision-making processes. Such mechanisms, as they are further developed, are increasingly independent of human ways of thought and reasoning. Let us go back to the last century, when scholarly studies looked into potential issues with data aggregation. In 1968, Guy Orcutt and his colleague published an article on the American Economic Review where they pointed out the possible loss of data integrity after aggregation in an economics context. Specifically, they reasoned that aggregation can result in loss of information, as there would always be data specific to a singular database which would be lost after aggregation. Moreover, in an article in the journal Geographical Analysis in 1976, W.A.V. Clark and Karen Avery pointed out the risk of incorrect correlations and regressions resulting from aggregating data. Such concerns make sense because when you try to synthesize information from a broad and vast amount of subjects, you would be prone to tunnel vision and would only pay attention to certain aspects of the data while ignoring other aspects that might still hold significance. To put it into a simplified example, imagine asking 3 people why they bought the car they are driving. Subject A would say, "Well, I bought a BMW because I prefer better handling and performance." Subject B would say, "Well, I bought a Mercedes because I enjoy the luxurious image." Finally, subject C would say, "I bought a Jaguar because I like the classic British culture." In the end, if you aggregate this information, you would come to the conclusion that all of them like luxury cars, which is a reasonable deduction. However, several issues can arise. First of all, what defines a luxury car? Is it the excessive frills, such as automatically closing doors and trunks? Or is it better built quality? Or the simple fact that it is marketed as a luxurious automobile? As far as I know, these qualities are not universal among luxury cars. Some classic Rolls-Royce models suffer from poor build quality, while a Lexus can be very affordable. Additionally, from the previously mentioned conclusion, it would seem that all 3 subjects bought their cars for the luxurious feature, but only subject B explicitly stated so. In summary, data aggregation can lead analysts to misleading or insufficient conclusions, which would fail to correctly synthesize information from the sources of data. Subjects would likely be misrepresented, and thus, in overall, one would be provided with a distorted and skewed perspective of even what they are specifically looking for. The second concern about ethical data aggregation would be about personal privacy. With the right amount of aggregation, which is oftentimes the more the better, a database can and will get extremely detailed. As I have pointed out earlier, the advancements of technology only makes it easier to do so. And as a result, at a certain point, data can be de-anonymized. In simpler terms, when you know a person enough, you don't even need to remember their name to be able to recall them in your memory. Furthermore, the development of artificial intelligence can and will make it possible for data analysis mechanisms to stop relying on human conventional personal details such as name, date of birth, or social security number in order to tell individuals apart as algorithms get more independent of human intervention. On this slide is an example of how personally identifiable data as we know it might not matter if enough data is gathered otherwise. On the left is how an average person would refer to an individual in a neutral way. A computer, however, would be able to tell the same individual apart from others with enough details without their name. Well, I have been going on about how data aggregation can produce undesirable ethical implications. Now I will go into further details on how the points made earlier would impact ethics itself. As you know it, profiling is actually something we do more than we would comfortably admit, and in the end, it is a reasonable thing to do, for the more we can boil down information, the more efficiently we can use it. However, a slanted perspective provided by biased data would facilitate profiling that is biased and thus unjust. Only with more information can we hope for a bigger picture that resembles reality as closely as possible. For example, poor credit score correlates with poor financial responsibility, but the former is not necessarily caused by the latter. On the other hand, even as technology has enabled larger scales of data gathering and aggregation, comes with it is the increasing role of automated and autonomous processing and analysis. So far, machines still need human intervention in order to come up with results that are reasonable with human ethics and morality. For example, would it be ethical to solve poverty by eliminating all poor people? Well, I believe not. In addition, after all, no one likes the prospect of someone or something else knowing much more than they would divulge to others. Bigger databases would make way for panoptical models, in which one has the power to watch any other, while others are never sure if they are being watched at any given time. It also provides the power to hamper liberty. For example, in 2018 alone, the social credit system in China has blocked up to 23 million people from purchasing travel tickets as a result of their so-called poor social scores. Ethical issues in data aggregation is still a field that is needing of more in-depth studies, including and especially social implications. If done correctly, the data industry would be able to develop more optimized and reasonable algorithms and mechanisms and benefit from them. Questions that can be asked and looked into include what aspects of a human being should be considered so as to paint an unbiased picture of them? What uniquely identifiable information about a person can be defined as a result of data aggregation that is beyond human reasoning? What kinds of fail-safe mechanisms can be conceptualized so that analytics institutions are aware of the inherent limitations of data gathered? How should data be aggregated in a way that is fundamentally secure and bias resistant? The list goes on. Provided the current state of the data industry, however, the most realistic path that can be taken promptly would be the better safeguard of sensitive data that wields power. Such direction would include facilitating good data security practices, keeping institutions' practices within acceptable ethical bounds, and the regulations to prevent imbalance biased towards any single or limited group of data holding institutions. There is so much to be studied about the ethical aspects of data analytics in general and data aggregation in particular. It should be considered in every field of science the importance of attaching the humanity factor to it. I have always believed that while humanities without science is feeble and fragile, science without humanities would be ruthless and hubristic. After all, what separates us from less advanced species is the ability to reason with regards to sophisticated mechanisms of morality and ethics. Such is the importance of having classes like this one in the program. Here are the documents that were referenced in this presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to me through World Classroom. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a good rest of the week.